This week as China has been just rolling out its military might. We've been talking about that parade that was on full display. It showed off brand new technology and weaponry that some experts say the world should be watching pretty carefully.
Chinese military is ever improving and is going to be a threat, if not now, but very soon.
China's military modernization and expansion included nuclear, new models of hypersonic anti-ship missiles, and AI drones, including an unmanned submarine drone.
Defense officials tell Fox News that the crew of a U.S. Navy-owned research vessel watched from a mere quarter-mile away as a Chinese Navy ship brazenly stole an underwater oceanographic research drone in the South China Sea.
The U.S. Navy's largest underwater drone measures 85 feet. That's roughly the length of a semi-truck with trailer. China just built one that's 130 feet long. That's bigger than a blue whale. In fact, it's the size of an actual attack submarine. Except there's no crew, no captain, no sailors. Just artificial intelligence controlling a weapons platform that can patrol the South China Sea for months without surfacing. Pentagon intelligence estimated China wouldn't achieve this until 2030. Satellite imagery from September 2025 proved them wrong by 5 years. And those are just the 2 drones they spotted. Nobody knows how many more are already underwater. The Pentagon wasn't prepared for this. US intelligence knew China was working on underwater drones. Every major navy was. But intelligence estimates suggested China was years away from deploying anything at this scale. The assessment was wrong. China didn't just catch up, they lapped the entire field. The key breakthrough is endurance. These drones can operate for months without human contact. No resurfacing for communication. No returning to base for refueling. They patrol autonomously, following programmed routes, making decisions without any human in the loop. Power comes from diesel-electric systems, similar to conventional submarines but optimized for unmanned operation. Without crew life support, heating, food storage, or sleeping quarters, the entire internal volume can be dedicated to fuel, batteries, weapons, and mission equipment. Intelligence assessments suggest operational ranges exceeding 6,000 nautical miles, with deployments lasting 30 to 90 days. Navigation happens through multiple redundant systems. Inertial navigation tracks position based on acceleration and movement. Terrain mapping uses sonar to identify underwater features and compare them to stored charts. Acoustic triangulation picks up sounds from known sources and calculates position. No GPS required. The drones navigate entirely underwater without surfacing or transmitting signals that would reveal their location. The AI handles everything: route planning, obstacle avoidance, target identification, threat assessment. Chinese military writings confirm the drones operate with full autonomy in designated patrol zones. They can identify enemy vessels, classify them by type, track their movements, and maintain surveillance for extended periods. One model shown at China's September 2025 military parade, the XLUUV, is configured as a mine layer. It can deploy mines along shipping lanes, near harbors, or in strategic choke points. Another variant carries torpedoes. A third type appears configured for surveillance and mapping operations. China is building different drones for different missions rather than one design trying to do everything. The scale of the program is what shocked analysts. Naval News identified at least 5 distinct XLUUV types in testing between 2022 and 2025. The September parade showcased 2 new models, never seen before. Intelligence estimates suggest China tested multiple designs in parallel, keeping the successful versions for naval service and offering the unsuccessful ones for export. That's a completely different approach than Western navies use. The US invested heavily in one design, the Orca, and focused on perfecting that single platform. China built many designs simultaneously, tested them all, and fielded the winners. It's a Silicon Valley approach applied to military hardware. Build fast, test fast, fail fast, scale what works. December 2016, the incident that gave China the blueprint. A U.S. Navy research vessel, the USNS Bowditch, was operating 50 miles northwest of Subic Bay in the Philippines. International waters, The ship deployed 2 underwater gliders to collect oceanographic data: temperature, salinity, sound speed, routine scientific work. A Chinese Navy ship, the ASR-510, had been shadowing the Bowditch for hours. When the American crew began recovering the gliders, the Chinese ship launched a small boat. The boat motored directly to one of the gliders floating on the surface, waiting to be retrieved. Chinese sailors grabbed it and took it back to their ship. The Bowditch crew broadcast repeated radio calls demanding return of the drone. The Chinese ship acknowledged the calls but ignored the demands. The glider disappeared onto the Chinese vessel. Pentagon spokesman Peter Cook issued a formal statement calling the seizure unlawful and demanding immediate return. China's response was blunt. You know that China has undisputed sovereignty of the South China Sea. There are risks from your continued close-in surveillance. China returned the drone several days later, but the damage was done. Chinese engineers had days to examine every component, every sensor, every circuit board, every line of software code. They reverse-engineered the entire system. The U.S. glider wasn't classified technology. It was a commercial oceanographic research tool used by universities and research institutions worldwide, but it gave China something valuable: a complete understanding of how the U.S. Navy uses underwater drones, what sensors they carry, how they navigate, how they communicate, what their limitations are. Within months, Chinese defense contractors began displaying their own underwater drone designs at international arms exhibitions. Within 2 years, satellite imagery showed multiple large underwater drones in testing at Chinese naval facilities. By 2025, China had the world's largest and most advanced underwater drone fleet operational in the South China Sea. The U.S. Navy built its submarine fleet around a specific advantage: stealth. American submarines are quieter than anything else in the ocean. They can operate in contested waters, track enemy vessels, gather intelligence, and fire weapons while remaining undetected. That advantage depends on numbers. The U.S. has 68 submarines. China has about 60. Roughly even, but autonomous drones change the math. China can build 10 underwater drones for the cost of one manned submarine. Maybe 20. The drones don't need nuclear reactors, don't need crew training, don't need the expensive life support systems that make submarines so costly. If China deploys 200 autonomous drones, the numerical advantage shifts dramatically. U.S. submarines would face a surveillance network covering vast areas of the South China Sea. Every movement tracked, every maneuver monitored. The stealth advantage erodes when hundreds of sensors are listening. Chinese military writings describe exactly this strategy. The U.S. Navy depends on an underwater sensor network called the Sound Surveillance System. Underwater microphones placed strategically to detect submarine movements. Chinese naval officers identified this as an Achilles heel. The sensors are vulnerable, fixed in place, connected by cables that run along the ocean floor. The new XLUUVs can target that infrastructure. They can locate the sensors, cut the cables, deploy countermeasures that jam or spoof the acoustic signals. Chinese fishing vessels, which often operate as naval militia, can drag nets across sensor arrays. The combination of drones and surface assets could blind the U.S. surveillance network in a matter of days. Brian Hart, Deputy Director of the China Power Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, confirmed the capability fits China's blockade strategy. In a 2024 CSIS report on a potential Taiwan scenario, covert mine laying around Taiwanese ports was identified as crucial to isolating the island. The XLUUVs can perform exactly that mission: deploy mines secretly, position them in choke points, activate them on command. The September 2025 parade displayed one confirmed mine layer variant and at least one torpedo-armed attack variant. A third model appeared, configured for long-range surveillance. The diversity of design suggests China is building a complete underwater warfare system, not just experimental prototypes. What surprised Pentagon officials most was the timeline. U.S. Navy planning documents from 2020 estimated China wouldn't achieve this capability until 2030 at the earliest. They were off by 5 years. Maybe more, since intelligence doesn't know when China actually began operational deployments. Retired Vice Admiral Thomas Roden, former commander of U.S. Naval Surface Forces, told reporters that China's development pace exceeded all projections. These are all unknowns right now. However, my gut reaction is they're probably moving faster than the United States. I've heard us talk about building dozens of XLUUVs over time. If we could do that, they can build hundreds. China's approach explains the speed. They didn't wait for one perfect design. They built 5 different designs and tested them simultaneously. The ones that worked entered production. The ones that didn't got sold to export customers. That parallel development process compressed years off the timeline. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy's Orca program faced repeated delays, technical problems, budget constraints, requirements changes. The first Orca drone only began sea trials in late 2023. Production of additional units has been slow. As of 2025, the U.S. has fewer than 5 Orca drones operational. China has at least 7 large drones confirmed in satellite imagery, 2 enormous 40-meter variants, 5 smaller XLUUVs in the 18-20-meter range. And that's only what satellites have spotted. Intelligence assessments suggest many more drones operating below the surface where satellites can't see them. The Philippines has recovered multiple Chinese underwater drones in its territorial waters. In September 2025, Filipino fishermen found a 12-foot Chinese drone operating near Linapacan Island. Philippine Coast Guard analysis confirmed it carried conductivity, temperature, and depth sensors for oceanographic surveys. 3 other Chinese drones were recovered earlier in 2025 from the Luzon Strait. Philippine military officials stated the drones were likely mapping Philippine waters for military purposes. The recoveries proved China is deploying these systems throughout the South China Sea. The autonomous drones are conducting surveillance operations across the entire region. China's newest development adds another layer: a drone that operates both underwater and in the air. The Feiyu features foldable wings. It launches from a submarine while submerged. Surfaces, deploys its wings, flies reconnaissance missions, returns to the water, folds its wings, dives, navigates back to the submarine. The South China Morning Post reported in January 2025 that Chinese researchers achieved the world's first successful submarine-launched drone, capable of multiple air-sea transitions in a single mission. The drone was developed by Northwestern Polytechnical University and the China Aerodynamics Research and Development Center. The capability means Chinese submarines can deploy air drones without surfacing. The submarine remains hidden while the drone conducts aerial surveillance. The drone can loop between sea and sky multiple times, gathering intelligence from multiple domains before returning. The Pentagon had been considering similar concepts for U.S. submarines. China beat them to operational capability. This fits China's broader strategy of multi-domain warfare, attacking from multiple directions simultaneously: surface, subsurface, air, and potentially space. The cross-media drones can bypass layered defenses designed to stop threats from one direction. A carrier battle group defended against air attack and submarine attack might not be prepared for drones that switch between both. The evidence suggests China is deploying these systems now. Not testing, not evaluating, deploying operationally. The 2 40-meter drones at Hainan are conducting sea trials, but the smaller XLUUVs shown in the military parade looked production-ready. The Philippines has recovered operational Chinese drones from its waters. Satellite imagery shows Chinese oceanographic research vessels and survey ships operating throughout the South China Sea, likely deploying and recovering drones. U.S. Navy officials have expressed growing concern but provided few public details about American countermeasures. The Navy requested budget increases for unmanned systems in 2024 and 2025. New underwater drone programs are in development, but the production timelines stretch years into the future. China controls disputed territory throughout the South China Sea, artificial islands with harbors, airfields, and military installations. Each island could serve as a drone base. Deploy drones, recover them, maintain them, rearm them. The islands create a distributed network of underwater drone operation centers spanning the entire region. The concern is that China is creating a surveillance net that monitors everything moving through the South China Sea. Every commercial ship, every naval vessel, every submarine. The drones provide persistent monitoring at a fraction of the cost of satellites or aircraft, and unlike satellites that pass overhead on predictable orbits, underwater drones can reposition, follow targets, and maintain surveillance indefinitely. Anyway, that's it for the video. Bye.